So today, from our previous discussion, we had a simple REST endpoint just returning us an hello world message. So today, we want us to transform this application to make use of reactive programming paradigm in Spring Boot. So the first thing that you are going to do is just adjust some of our dependencies. And the main dependency that we are going to look at is going to be this Spring Boot Starter Web. And then for this case, we are in just to introduce an added Spring Boot Starter. But then if your application is not able to load this particular dependency, what we are going to do, we are going to Control-Shift-P on this one, and then we are going to search for Maven, which is from Spring Initializer, and then we are going to add starter. So we are going to select this one, add starter, and then we'll be able to, using our POM file, we are going to read the particular metadata from the Spring Initializer project, and we'll be able to update our dependencies to pick the new configuration. So let me just quickly start again. It's trying to fetch the information. Yeah, so once it fetches, it will be able to enlist our dependencies from Spring Initializer. So you can see we are making use of Spring Web. So what you're going to do is just unselect this one, and so that just going to remove this, and then come down here and select search for Web Flux. So we can just search directly for Web Flux. And Web Flux is actually going to be the dependency that we require from Spring Boot to make use of the reactive paradigm. So I'm going to select this one, and then from there click enter just to proceed. So from there just click proceed, and we'll be able to have updated our framework. So quickly you can save this, and let's check. You can see that we have that added dependency here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove the web MVC paradigm from our application completely, and anything to do with the Spring Boot starter tests, I'm going to remove that. So we just remain with the three dependencies, that is the Web Flux, the Lombok, and the DevTools. So from there, I'm going just to remove this particular class for test class. I'm going to remove this one, and just to delete it for now. Then you'll be able to see how we expose our Web Flux endpoint. So once we do update those dependencies, I'm going just to restart our application completely. Then what you're going to realize is that at this point, we'll be able to have everything to do with the request mapping maintained, and everything we maintain that. But then I want to show you how you're going to make use of a simple one just to export the same. So this one, we are going to return one single object of type string. So to do that, I'm going just to specify that we expect to send a mono, meaning it's a reactive framework, mono, and then within its brackets we are going to specify the type of string. All right. So from here, then we need to return this payload as form of as a mono. So we make use of mono.just for just, whereby we specify the actual data, and this actual data need not to be null. So if it's null, then this one will throw an exception. So we are going to return just one single object by using mono.just. And once we save that and restart our application now again, you'll be able to have made use of the reactive framework in place. So this one's going to start. So you can see our application now is started. And one thing that you'll be able to realize is that now we have been using, whenever you use the web dependency, you end up using Tomcat, but then now we are making use of a different web server known as Netty web server, and this is the one that is used to do the reactive. It's a web server which is reactively enabled, so which is able to support the reactive paradigm. So automatically with that dependency, we'll be able to have changed from Tomcat to reactive Netty server. So let's just test and confirm that our actual payload is actually working. So I'm going just to send the request again. You can be able to see we're able to get the same response. Right, so let's see how you're going to expose. Let's say you are working with simple inventory, whereby you're going to have different categories of objects. Let's proceed. Okay, so we are going to create a simple model here, which is going to be a model folder just to hold our detail. So I might just to have a product response, product detail, just for a response detail dot Java. I might just to create a simple class to illustrate the process of mapping a list or collection of data from the repository and sending them to that particular site. So what we are going to do here, we are going to annotate this one as at data from Lombok. Then we are going just to annotate this one with at all arguments constructor and then at no args constructor. And with this we are going to introduce just few fields here. So private final private int ID. Maybe let me just use a string to just randomly generate a value. String product ID. So product ID, and then from there I'm going just to do a couple product name, and then we can have product code. Yeah, so let's say we are dealing things with the products, so you can be able to see we have defined our simple project to just represent that particular payload. So from there I'm going just to quickly create another folder or package to illustrate the repository. Then within this repository you are just to have product repository .java. Alright, so within this one I'm going just to leave it as of type class, but then remember it's going to be a repository, so I need to annotate at no repository. I'm going just to have this one as such repository. Then I'm just going to have just simple repository, which is an interface. Then for this one I'm going just to define my custom repository implementation. So I'm just to have another class which is going to be one that is going to be used, implementation.java, and this one is going to implement the actual repository that you are going to see there. Implements. Okay. For now I want us to mock this one, so I don't necessarily need this until we start using the database. We'll be able to start using that. So let's just have our service layer just to perform the various operations. So service, then from here we can just have the product service dot Java. Then it's going to be an interface, so select an interface. Then let's have another folder inside here which is going to be the implementation. Then within this we are going to just have product service implementation.java class. So with this we are going to implement the service interface, so product service, and within this one now we'll be able to annotate this particular class as a service. So we make it a service by annotating it at service. Then we make use of SL4J just to have our logger available for us. So what we're going to do, we are just to have particular private lists of products. So I'm going just to have a simple list here which is going to be product detail, just to hold the data for us. So I'm going just to have products which is going to be new array lists. New array list. So I'm going just to quickly import this from Java util, and then add this one from the class, and then we are going to have array list that way. So given that, we are going to, on the post construct of this class, whenever it's going to be created, we are going just to initialize and set some data. So I'm going just to have at post construct annotation there. Then we are just to do public void setup, and then we are in just to have setup function, and then within this one we are just to initialize our repository for products. So and just to say products dot add, mine just to have a list of products, so I might just to make use of lists dot off. Then from there we are in just to have that, so add all. I think we need add all function, then we'll be able to add the list of our products. So within this we are in just to have a product, so I might just to have a simple product response DTO dot build. I need to have the build annotation on this one so that we can make use of inline. So you're in just to have builder, then product ID, and just to make use of UUID dot UUID, which is that dot random UUID dot to string, into that as the first field, and then the next field we are going to have is going to be the product code. Product code we are in just to say 001 001, then we are going to have the product dot product name to be something like banana. Right, so that is the first one we are going to have, and then we need to build the entire object and generate a product res out of it. So I might just to duplicate this one a couple of times just to have 3 instances of that. Then we can be able to have this one as 002, and then this one is going to be juice, and then this is going to be 003, and then it's going to be apples. Alright, so let's say we have our product set this way. So what I'm going to do is on the product interface we are going to just expose a list of method. Now you can see at this point on our service implementation we are making use of a list to store our data. So how we're going to manage then the data in that we want to make use of the reactive paradigm. So we are going to transform this list into a flux of objects. So in this case we are just to say we expect flux indicates many, and then we are going to have product res DTO, and then from there we are in just to say list on. So we are going to have this particular function. Let's import flux from core publisher, and then the DTO class from our model folder. So once we save that, then we'd have to need to implement that particular class here, then add that particular implemented method. So from here we are going to convert our products list into a flux of objects. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to just say flux dot from iterable. So what you make use of is from iterable, and then we are going to supply our iterable, which is going to be the products. So in this case we are just going to have the products, and that is what we are actually going to return. Right, so that transforms the list into a flux of objects. So we are going to see these are the things that we'll be seeing flux and the mono all along in terms of the reactive framework. So you can just log something here, log.info, then we're going to say fetching products. Right, so with this, then we need now to expose our service into a REST control. So what we're going to do is we're going just to have another interface injected within our controller. So I'm going to create a different controller for this scenario. So we're going just to have our product controller class.java here. Now with this, we want to expose it as at REST end controller. So just specify that, and then from there just specify the request mapping, which in this case requests mapping this one, and then it's going to be under /API/products. Alright, so from here we need just to have a product listing. So we are in just to say and to return public, which in this case is going to be a get mapping that way. So we don't want any path, so we are just to leave this one empty, so that whenever we make a get path to this particular request, we have a get mapping, and then this one is going to return a flux of objects, which is going to be product res.dto as the actual argument. So we are going to import that, and then from here we are going to import also this one. So flux, and then we are going to say list all. Alright, so from here we don't expect any request parameter at the moment. We are just going to leave it empty. Now we need to inject our service for us to be able to make use of it. Alright, so what we are going to do, we are going to inject it using the constructor injection. So private final product service. So we pick this class, which is an interface, and then that is what we specify here. So import that, and then from there specify the variable. Then we need a constructor, so you can make use of this quick fix, and then add field initialize, and you can see this one is complaining, but then we just need a public constructor for this. So public the product controller, which is a constructor, and then define it this. So with this we are going to set that we are expecting to have an injection for the product service, and then we are going to set the variable of the product service to be the injected product service that way, and that finalizes that. So what we need to do now is actually use the product service within our list all function. So what we just to do is return product service dot list all. So ideally that would have made an endpoint, which is a get mapping and API products, and this one now would be able to expose our data into a REST framework. So you can see the change is just literal, whereby instead of sending a list, you are sending a flux, meaning it's going to contain one or more objects of the same type that is defined there. So let's quickly see this one in action. So what I'm going to do, just duplicate this request path here, and then this one is going to be list products. So you're going to have the same endpoint, but then we are going to make a call to API/products that way. So once you make this call, be able to see we are able to get a list of products. So you can see the actual products that we defined. So that is how we expose a simple REST endpoint, but then using the reactive framework for a list of data. Okay, yes.